When are we live? We already are live. Oh shit. Well, welcome back.
Did they already do the big intro and the music and all the streamers?
Lev with no
he
microphone.
Does that later. He does that later.
Oh shoot, he's micless. Everyone should have a Lev. This is a good place to start.
Sure.
Do you have a Lev?
Do I have a Lev?
The human manifestation of AI.
I have AI. Okay. I have chat.
You have chat GPT.
I mean, I use them all day. No, I use a different one because I don't know, just for the hell of it. This way I don't get the same answers as everybody else.
Oh, you're using
I think it's called Chat AI.
Chat AI.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But you don't have like an assistant? You don't have like
I have an assistant. I have Sarah. She's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't function without a right hand.
Yeah. I was just on our Instagram account today and I looked at it and it stopped working. And I was freaking out. I was on the way here. I'm like, why is usually, right? There's like followers and engagement and likes and shares. Shout out to all the people that are sending us hate messages also. What they don't realize is it still counts as engagement.
So you're excited about that?
Yeah. So I just start asking them questions, right? As opposed to making statements. And then just the engagement gets longer and longer and longer and longer. So I love it. But I noticed that it stopped. I reached out to Lev and I was like frantic, sending him screenshots. And shout out to Lev for ghosting me and making me feel like we're in like this relationship where you don't care about me. But
maybe he must shut you off.
He's X, not Instagram.
Yeah, oh, you're on Instagram.
Oh yeah, I'm talking about Instagram.
Yeah.
Nobody hates like family.
Yes.
That's what we always say because Mark Zuckerberg's obviously Jewish.
Yes.
So shout out to my cousin Mark. But before we started today, we were talking about asylum. Which is kind of a weird place to start this discussion.
Very weird.
But I think it's a good segue into who our host is today, right? Mikey G. And I think, America is like this really interesting country. Everybody calls it the melting pot. But, my dad's Israeli, my mom's American. And when Israelis come to America, generally, historically, they've done moving. They've done garage doors. Not many locksmiths. Shout out to Dean Lulkin behind the camera.
Those are your first words, Dean. How do you?
Yeah, first words.
Yeah, I contributed.
Financed by Dean Lulkin. I'm a banker. Hard money Dean.
Yeah,
hard money Dean. Yeah. But America's this interesting country, right, where immigrants come and they're looking for a better opportunity. And as a kid, I was, not very proud of what my dad did for a living, though he was extremely honest and extremely hardworking. But I remember watching the Food Network. That was like our thing. In fact, they came and filmed an episode at our house. And interestingly enough, it was, I can't remember the chef's name, Tyler Florence. And it was an episode about, I want to cook for my husband, but he won't eat my crappy food because my mom's American. She's from Chicago.
Chicago's got good food.
Well, but it's like, what is my mom going to cook for him? Like, deep dish pizza and hot dogs, right. Chicago dogs. My dad won't eat pizza. That's like really foreign to him.
That's ridiculous.
Well, we're not going to change him.
Yeah.
We're not going to change him. No, but whatever. Second generation, right? We fixed that. I love pizza, although I don't really love deep dish pizza. But I guess the point that I'm trying to get at, we had the Food Network come and she was like, save my relationship with my husband. He won't eat my food. And he taught, the whole episode was how to cook Greek food for my husband.
Yeah.
And so it was spanakopita, and it was like anything with phyllo dough, salmon roe, right? Like fish eggs and stuff like that. Again, shout out, I don't know if we got it, but shout out to Huntress Steakhouse for the for the caviar. Make sure we put that right here. That was amazing. Mikey G hosted our company holiday party, but Greek food is a central part of like Middle Eastern culture. Right. Most of the stuff that we eat is really from, remember that movie? My Big Fat Greek Wedding. Right.
Oh, it was great.
He's like, that's Greek. That's also Greek.
Everything is Greek.
Everything's Greek. But it's like, it's the Greeks and the Italians or whatever that influence like that type of cuisine. And I remember watching Food Network as a kid, and every diner that they went to visit was like, well, what's your name? And it was like, it's Mikey.
Yeah.
You know, or
It's
something.
George.
Yeah, it's George.
Peter.
Yeah. And so what my dad explained to me was like when Greek immigrants would come to America, what they would first start out doing is they would start a diner.
Yeah.
And so I think it's a good segue into kind of introducing our guest, Mikey. How'd you do this? How did you find this level of success? Take us through the origin story. Because for anyone listening at home who wants to build a restaurant, you know, obviously it's not easy.
Right.
But I think once you get, and I think this is what I want you to tell people, is just that once you build one, if you build it on terra firma, right? If you build it on solid ground, then you can scale as long as you have the right people. And I think like I've met a lot of people who work for some of the restaurants that you own. And those people are passionate about hospitality.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, well, you just told the start story, which is, you know, it's from the beginning. So my mom was in the restaurant business. I grew up Greek and Italian. What we're talking about.
Yeah.
Full Mediterranean. My mom's side of my family was Italian, 100% Italian.
yeah,
Their parents from Italy. Grandparents didn't speak a lick of English. So, you know, you learn. I grew up that culture. My dad's side of the family was Greek with the big long last name, Georgopoulos, but not very Greek, very American, in fact.
what city is this?
They're in Boston.
In Boston.
Yeah,
Okay.
I
Right.
grew up actually in Boston, city of Boston, born in city of Boston. But my sort of Greek side of my life actually, or understanding of the heritage, came from a family friend, the Kapitanakises. And they took me in as Greek because they knew that my dad's side of the family wasn't very Greek, but I had this monster Greek last name.
Yeah.
And so their family took me in. They wanted me to be Greek, you know?
Yeah.
They wanted me to learn the culture.
Yeah.
So anything that I ever did on the Greek side of things, meaning going to Orthodox church or going to a Greek wedding or a christening or even having Greek food, was always with the Kapitanakis family. So I sort of had this dual upbringing. And in Boston, it's very Greek, Italian, Armenian, or at least in the cities I grew up in.
Irish?
In the city of Boston, a lot of Irish. In the suburbs where I eventually grew up,
Right.
Just outside of the city, the ethnicities I mentioned. But so my mom was in the restaurant business as a waitress. You know, single mom working multiple jobs. She had multiple restaurant waitressing jobs, and my family friends, the Kapitanakises, owned a Greek restaurant. Not they didn't call it a diner, but pretty much a diner.
Yeah.
And so, you know, that's what I learned.
You grew up there.
I learned hospitality. I learned that's the industry that my people most understand and do. And the reality is how I actually got into it was, I think, from my love of eating. At the time, it wasn't a love of food. It was just a love of eating. I would eat anything, and I would eat a lot of it, mostly pizza.
Yeah.
So my mom worked in this Italian restaurant called MJ's, and I would walk about, you know, I realize it now. Back then I thought it was a 10-minute walk.
Yeah.
I realize now, going back and actually driving into my car, it must have been an hour. But I'd walk to this restaurant where my mom was working to get free food.
What age are we?
I'm in 8th, 9th grade at this point.
Yeah.
I'd go to football practice, tell one of my buddies, let's go eat. We'd go to the restaurant and we would eat in this restaurant. And it was a guy named Mike who owned the restaurant. Awesome guy.
Are we sitting in the back on stools eating?
We're sitting in a booth, like at the beginning, we were treated like guests.
Okay.
We were sitting
in
the booth. And then Mike, big gregarious guy, Italian, awesome guy, you know, impacted my life in many ways after that, but recognized that we were, you know, eating free food and not doing anything for it. And he's Italian and you just don't do that.
Yeah.
So it became if you're going to eat here, you're going to earn it. So it was, you come down and eat anytime you want, but now you got to go wash some dishes. Now you got to peel lettuce.
Yeah.
So that's how it started. It started out my desire to eat pizza and Philly cheesesteaks and chicken wings. And I would wash dishes, and it's kind of a cliche. You hear about it a lot.
Yeah.
You see the movie, the guy forgot his wallet and he has to go in the back and wash the dishes. Well, that's how it started for me.
Yeah.
Quick question. Favorite pizza? You've seen
New
Dave
York,
Portnoy.
New York style. Oh, Dave Portnoy is the man, dude. Matter of fact, he recently rated a pizza place in my town that I grew up on. And he rated it on the lower side because it changed hands. And the pizza place is exactly the same place, probably exactly the same recipe, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Not the same guy.
Yeah.
Not the same love.
Yeah.
And it went down 2 points probably from where it should have been on Dave's rating. So
what was the rating?
it was a 4 something.
Whoa.
What's he? Is he 10 or 5?
He's 10.
He's 10. It was a 7 something.
Oh,
and it should have been a 9. Should have been a 9 something.
I've never seen.
I got an 8. I got an 8 at our 8-5. I think at Ciro's, our old pizza place.
Ciro's Pizza is great too.
Dave,
Stop by?
From Dave, yeah.
Dude, how many drunk nights have there been where you're at actually you're starting, maybe you're ending the night at Sidebar?
Well, you're ending the night at Ciro's, but you're
Ciro's,
right
yeah.
before then you're at
you're at
you go from
Sidebar.
Sidebar to Ciro's.
Yeah. Oh man.
Yeah.
That was my.
Yeah, we had that. That ran 20 years, 19 years.
That's like a. It's like a piece of San Diego downtown culture.
Yeah, I would say Sidebar and Ciro's the same.
How many people do we know who have met their wife or husband?
We have done many engagement proposals and actual weddings at Sidebar for that reason.
Yeah, but I mean like that they've met there.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
No, they've come back and said, hey, we met here.
Right.
We want to do our, I want to propose here.
Yeah.
And we would always, let them do it.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It's wild, right? You can, I don't know about you. I don't know how you met your wife, but like, I guess in modern times, that's really where you meet your love interest.
Well, maybe modern times now might be like some sort of online app or
does that even work? Everyone I know that's on these online dating apps, it's like if the gal's hot, she's catfishing you for money.
Yeah.
I think that's the old, like your generation. Like the
we're saying
guys, like
modern.
the 20.
We're not modern.
Wait, dude, bro.
Your friend, I have younger friends and they meet girls all
they're all-
that
that's
they
how-
date
yeah,
and
I would
like
agree.
25, 26.
Online.
Online. That's all they do.
100%.
And they
Interesting.
date and they get engaged and they get married and it's weird and they fall in love and have kids.
Dean was telling me that there's a bunch of gay apps and that there's one major one.
It's just throwing you in there, Dean. Like,
No, but there was one that we all know, Grindr, which I actually thought would be an interesting platform for us to advertise on. You know what I mean? But I don't think you can advertise on there. I'm always looking for places to advertise. I don't know how they're making money. That's a great.
Sure why my name is being inserted in
yeah, I don't
Yeah,
know.
well, we were just
I
having.
feel like I have to talk now.
Yeah,
You have to defend yourself.
I have to defend myself. No, we shouldn't say defend ourselves.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with being gay.
No, there's a consortium of apps.
Grinder, enjoy.
Dude, shout out to Grindr. Like, let us advertise on your application.
Shout out to John Schiffer, my wife's gay best friend, who stayed with us a few weeks back.
Yeah.
And he was telling me the story about how no, it's not Grindr. He has many different apps.
Keep it PG.
Oh yeah, but of course it's PG.
Okay.
But besides Grindr, there are a bunch of other apps that if you want to have a relationship or you want to go have food with somebody, there's an app for that.
Interesting.
And Grindr is a very specific app for things we shouldn't talk about. But there are other apps that they use.
Well, I guess the point is, right? Like, and by the way, thank you for the edification, Dean and John Schiffer. But I still think that, like, if I was to get back into the dating world, right, which I would never want to do, but if I had to, right, it's meeting people at these, clubs and venues and stuff like that, where you meet like-minded people. I just think it's remarkable how many people that I know personally who have met their love interest at places like Sidebar or Rustic Root or something like that.
That's an actual fact. And I have many, but that number is growing. I have a friend who was in town last weekend who I actually was present for a date he had made online. And they were having a great time. They had a nice dinner together. They seemed to be very compatible. And you know, whether it'll continue or not, I actually did see it.
Yeah.
Seems odd to me.
Yeah.
I would agree.
Yeah.
Especially being, again, sort of the host of many of these personal meetings at Sidebar and Stingery and Flux and all the clubs we've owned.
Yeah.
We've met many people have met and then wanted to come back and either do their engagement or their proposal, I should say.
Yeah.
And the wedding. I've hosted the wedding because they've met there. So
which venue?
So Flux specifically, I actually hosted a venue at Sidebar. We did the rehearsal dinner.
Good times at Flux.
For
what a nightclub.
It was amazing.
Dude.
And by the way, what a wedding venue.
That place reminded me of the early 2000s Entourage.
Yeah, right.
It was the closest that you could get, in my opinion, to what LA felt like in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
What an amazing venue. I didn't mean to cut you off.
It was awesome. No, but it was, so I agree with you on the one hand, but I am witnessing this sort of evolution of the online dating thing. And I think it is the way.
It's here to stay.
It is the modern way.
It's
now.
here to stay.
Yeah.
Well, who knows? Maybe maybe they're connecting over the app and then they're like, let's meet at, right? Let's meet at this club.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like, so those.
Eventually you're going to have to meet in person.
Yeah. And so those venues are still central, right? It's not like they're being displaced.
Agreed.
Yeah. How'd you meet your wife?
I was working for a hotel company. She was working for a hotel company here in San Diego when I had just moved here.
Yeah.
Or not just had moved here. I've been here about a year and a half. And so we were at work.
Oh, interesting.
Basically.
Okay. And how many people from the nightclubs, restaurants, and all that stuff that you own, how many people have gotten married that way?
Oh, I mean, I have several key high up employees who met at work.
Yeah, it's wild.
And they're married with children.
Yeah. Weird question, and it's kind of tangential to what we're talking about, but like, owning and operating a company for the last 20 years, it's inevitable that people leave, right, that feel very passionate about what they did and have a mission and a vision of what they want to accomplish. And so they start their own thing. Mm-hmm. I think Dean and I would, over the last 20 years, we would affectionately refer to people who leave our organization to start something similar as children, right? Those are our children. I think we would do that before we had children. We refer to them as our children. And then people that would leave their organization to start their own, we would call our grandchildren. And we've always had this great relationship, I would say, with people who've left Cardiff to go start their own thing, whether it's like, hey, we'd like to invest, or how can we help you get set up? But I think for the people that are running a restaurant, a bar, a nightclub today, right? I'm guessing that they're faced with this reality where it's like, I've got this key individual, right? And it's like, it's this tug of war. It's like, do I try to keep them here? Are they unhappy? Should I just keep paying them more? I mean, something like this probably happens in your industry as well. But how do you let go? How do you let go? How do you support them? How do you limit resentment? Because I always hear great things, which is like the people who know Mikey G, his partners, his key players, whether they go off to do something else, Mikey G is still the center, right, of their sort of galaxy, right? Yeah.
So it's a great question, and of course it's that give and take.
Yeah.
So you want to keep all the best people, and you hope that you can create enough opportunity to keep enough people. At the same time, you hope that you are developing enough people that you couldn't possibly keep them all, right? So if you're doing an amazing job at developing people, you're never going to have enough opportunity for all of them.
Yeah.
So in our particular case, it's sort of become our model to explain that we will open let me start at the beginning. It's the best way for me to describe it. Manager comes to work for me.
Yeah.
Or for us and our team.
This is a story of what?
This is exactly what will happen is, they'll come work, they'll say I was a general manager or a manager at XYZ restaurant company here in San Diego.
Yeah.
And I'll come to find out they don't know very much. And I don't mean they don't know very much about how to do the job. They don't know very much about what happens to actually run the business because they're generally kept in the dark, right? So they don't see P&Ls. They don't see, they don't understand what the lease situation is. They weren't hands-on during the development and the opening of the business. So they don't know much about actually opening a restaurant. What they sometimes know really well is how to run the day-to-day, what we call keeping the trains running on time.
Yeah.
Open the door,
right?
Put the money in the register, keep the trains running.
Yeah.
So what we'll offer them is an opportunity to learn all aspects of the business because they've expressed that they want to someday open their own restaurant.
Right.
And truthfully, those are the best people.
Right.
Most of the other people, a lot of the other people, they never intended to stay in the restaurant business. They were doing it to get through college or to.
These are like the guys who are like, I'm driving for Uber.
Yeah.
And this is just a temporary thing. Well, like, how long you been driving for Uber? 8 years.
Yeah, I'm gonna be an actress. I'm gonna be an actor.
Yeah.
So we have been incredibly fortunate that we've had a lot of success in moving people through the ranks or through the rungs of the hierarchy and gotten them to where they wanted to be. Some of which who have stayed. I would say we have over 15 employees that have been with us, if not over 20 years, over 15.
Yeah.
And some in key positions. I'm talking senior leadership positions. But then the last 3 businesses that we've sold, which happen to all be nightclubs.
Okay.
Sidebar, Flux, and F6. We sold all 3 to employees.
Oh, wow.
So you have now employees who sort of graduated the program and they now or did own and operate those venues.
So how did they come to you? How do they come to you and say like,
well, in the case of, let me give you an example. So Frankie Shudo, who recently purchased Sidebar from us.
Yeah. By the way, great with social media.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I'm watching his Instagram and it is like blowing up.
He came as a
great
bartender.
marketer. Really?
Came as a bartender.
Okay.
He now came from a family in the industry.
Okay.
Sort of in the blood, right?
Yeah.
His dad owned bars.
Okay.
Still owns the Lamplighter and
a
very successful San Diego icon. So he came sort of already preconditioned, but not with any of the reps or the experience needed.
Right.
So, hey, I want to be a bartender. I want to be a bar manager. I want to be an assistant general manager. I want to be a general manager.
Yeah.
I want to be an owner.
Right.
And that's the conversation we had. That's where he is today.
How long is that? Like, take us through like that first discussion, right? He starts as a bartender and then did he say to you 6 months, a year later, like,
no. Day one.
When
I interviewed Frankie.
Yeah.
He said, I want your job. I want to be you.
What's his last name?
Shudo.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right,
so he said it on day one.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of guy you're like, great.
Yeah.
No, 50 people say that. One person can do it.
Interesting.
Out of the 50, but he's that one. So he said it on day one, and I want to say it was 4 years later.
Yeah.
Not bad.
He's
that's a great trajectory.
And he's killing it.
Yeah. What a trajectory.
Yeah. And so I have the two previous general managers of Rustic Root, both left to open their own places, one here in San Diego and one in Connecticut. Back where she lived. Her husband.
Because that's where Portnoy says the best pizza comes from.
Oh, the pizza, dude.
Yeah. Why is that? I don't know. Good. It's crispy.
You know what? They use wood.
Yeah.
A lot of wood.
Okay. Yeah. Makes sense.
Which gives you a great flavor.
Yeah. Great flavor.
So New York style thin crust.
That's charcoal?
Charcoal or wood. Could be either.
Yeah.
Solid fuel, they call it.
Yeah.
Either charcoal or wood.
Gotta have a good undercarriage.
Gotta have a good
one bite, everyone knows the rules.
Everybody knows the rules.
Dude, I'm such an addict for his posts.
He's great.
I really enjoy it.
He's awesome.
He's so comfortable. I had no idea, by the way, that he had a gambling app, right? That eventually he sold, right, to this sports gambling thing.
I think he bought it back for like $1.
Yeah.
Oh,
wild stuff. Yeah. Wild stuff.
Yeah,
Recently.
Yeah.
And it was hilarious because, and this is an interesting tangential conversation I want to get back to you, but I remember seeing an Instagram post. It was a video. I shouldn't call it a post. I'm dating myself.
Yeah.
It was a reel. And it was like him walking into the office after he bought it back. It's like, what the fuck? Nobody's here. Get the fuck back to work. And you're like, wow, like he comes off as this very like amicable, gregarious, right? Like fun loving, but there's a different side. Yep. There's a different side to him that's like, get the fuck to work. And it's funny because like, I'm not sure I would want to be friends with that guy. I'm not sure that I'd want to be partners with that guy. And if I was an employee, I'm pretty sure I wouldn't want to work for that guy. And I think like being in the industry that you're in, it's a delicate tightrope to walk because you're dealing with people that are essentially, right, at least in the nightclub industry, these are night owls, right? Sleep during the day, right? Up all night.
Yeah.
I'm guessing not like just sort of formulaic. I don't want to pin anybody, but not necessarily the most accountable, responsible, right?
In some cases, in a lot of cases. Yeah. You know what it is? It's young.
Yeah.
That really what
just
it is.
Skews young.
It's young. It skews young. And what are young people doing? You know, a lot of people I'll make the counter argument defending some. Right. The counter argument is everybody my age is out on Friday and Saturday night, all night. I'm working. They're partying.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of these employees are working, then partying. So they're going to bed at, noon the next day.
The next day, right.
So it's a burnout industry and a lot of people get swept up in it. And I've seen a lot of people go down. I've seen a lot of people do tremendously well, parlaying nightclub bottle service waitress, learns selling, learns relationship building, learns how to manage contacts. I mean, in our space, and in a lot of the more reputable nightclub operations, as a bottle service waitress, you have to maintain a database. Yeah. You have to make your calls during the week. You've got to make your touches.
These are the cold calls, right?
Sure, yeah. Well,
are you coming back?
They're warm because, they came in. So we're saying, reach back out. Hey, we'd love to see you again. Hope your trip went really well. Yeah. Come in and tell me all about it. So they're learning sales skills and relationship building. And they're working essentially on commission because the higher the bill, the more the gratuity, et cetera.
I've always wanted to know, like you go to a nightclub, right? And they show you this very limited menu of alcohol bottles that you can buy. Yeah. And it's like, I think when I was young, you'd be like, wait, I can go to the liquor store and get that bottle for $40. But you're at Flux, for example, and a bottle of Stoli on the low end is $400. And then Grey Goose is maybe more, and so on and so forth. As you sort of climb that ladder, champagne even more exorbitant. Just curiosity. What's the type of commission?
Well,
that bottle service gal.
So on the VIP host side, the person who generally books the table, there's an actual commission that could be anywhere from 5 to 15%
off the bill.
Okay. On the cocktail waitress side, it's on the gratuity side or service charge, which is anywhere from, it used to be 18 all the way up to 22, 23, even 25 now. And then they get their pro rata portion of that, as well as all the other people in the chain, right? Because there's a busboy, there's a security guard, there's the guy, if you order that $2,000 bottle of champagne and it's coming out on and the waitress is coming out on a chariot or
and
a rocket.
Sparklers.
And so everybody's getting a piece. But, a good bottle service waitress, a few years ago when I was closer to it, in San Diego is making $100,000 a year.
That's amazing.
Working 3 nights a week.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, it's a very specialized skill, and you're either really good at it or you're not.
Yeah.
So
when you interview these gals, right? Because it's predominantly women, right? That are these waitresses. What are you looking for?
Personality. There's a look generally, depending on the uniform and the type of place. Yeah. There's what you're looking for is consistency, because you don't want somebody who you put some time into training who's going to flake and then not show up to work or quit in 3 weeks.
So for like a marquee club, not to use Marquee's name, but for like a marquee club, would you only, I know there's a reason why I'm asking this question, but would you only hire someone who's done it before?
No, absolutely not.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
No. I mean, first of all, that's just in San Diego, it's not even practical. Yeah. Because and you got to remember, back when we were doing this the most, we were at the forefront of it. Yeah. So we had opened the first and the second and the third and the fourth, clubs that had done bottle service. So there wasn't that many, unless they were coming in from Vegas or moving from LA. So no.
San Diego didn't have that kind of action.
No. Yeah. No. The best place we ever got, again, back years ago, much different now. Best place we ever got cocktail waitresses from was Hooters.
Oh God.
Hooters translated really well.
Really?
The training at Hooters was really good.
Yeah.
They already sort of were in the mode of being personable. I mean, if you go to Hooters, they sit down at the table and they write their name down on the menu and
put their arm around you.
There's a level of hospitality
Yeah.
that comes with it.
Yeah.
There's all the things that you think about Hooters, but there is a level of hospitality that's trained at Hooters.
Good training.
And they did a really good job.
Yeah.
And so and then they were generally, those gals were generally doing modeling or appearances. Yeah. So they sort of knew the routine. So now you're saying to somebody, hey, you're doing this 5 days a week, 6-hour shifts, making this much.
Right.
I can get you more money in less shifts, same outfit. And it was an easy sell.
Well, the reason why I ask about the hiring is that Fontainebleau just opened up in Vegas.
Yep.
And
finally.
Right. It's only been 15 years? Something like that.
Yeah, I think it's been 15. Yeah.
Yeah. What a wild, wild ride. I don't know how many times we've been to Las Vegas and you stay at the Wynn Encore and you look over and you're like, it's still not done. There's a crane park there. Like, what are they doing? But finally it just opened, obviously. And I was reading, and this is sort of why I asked you the question, which is they claim, and I don't know if it's true, that they interviewed 10,000 cocktail waitresses for their nightclub.
I mean, that sounds high.
Sounds wild.
Yeah. It sounds unnecessary.
Or rather, no. Sorry. Not that they interviewed. 10,000 gals applied.
Oh, that I believe.
Okay.
Yeah. That's possible.
Well, so what's you look at that funnel. So like you have one nightclub, I don't know how many square feet it is, maybe 15,000 square feet, something
what,
like that.
at Fontainebleau?
Yeah.
Oh, I got to imagine it's probably significantly bigger than that.
Okay.
But I don't really know.
Well, I don't know, 20,000 square feet, how many cocktail waitresses?
The one in Miami's got to be at least 25, right?
Okay.
20,000. So.
How many cocktail waitresses do you need for 25,000 square feet?
I would say, I'll just 30.
Okay, 30. Yeah. So they say 10,000 girls applied. I don't even know how you sift through that.
Well, if you get that many, you're in Vegas, first of all, so you can go for experience. Yeah. So my assumption is you're going, okay, let me take the top 5 clubs in Vegas and let me find the gals that work there.
Yeah.
So you're going through experience. My guess is because it's Vegas and you can get away with it, there's a photo.
Yeah.
There's probably a photo coming with the resume.
Yeah.
So that's helping them go through it.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's my assumption is they whittled that way. Well, of course they did.
Yeah.
And then they did a casting call, and then they probably literally walked the line and went by appearance.
This is funny. This is reminding me of that movie Casino.
Yeah.
Right, where they're looking at, I don't know if you remember that movie. You probably weren't born yet, but it was, but it was they were looking at gals to be, what do you call those?
The dancers.
The dancers, right? And they're, oh man, they're pinching them on the side,
that's
getting
Vegas.
them on the scale. That is Vegas.
So you're saying these girls didn't even like me. There's a sales pitch at this point.
I mean,
they got my number. This is years ago, for the record. Okay.
Wait, what were you doing?
I mean, at the club, they would get your number. They flirt with you.
Oh, dude, I'm thinking you're interviewing to be a cocktail waitress, and they're grabbing you by the sides.
Now you might be. Yeah. No, but yeah.
I would say, look, some of it, it's all a job, but the reality is I know relationships that did blossom. From there. I know many relationships that came from.
You don't make me feel so bad now.
Client. Yeah. No, you got a shot.
It's interesting. I know, again, we're going back to this again and again and again, but I know a guy, very successful guy, I'm not going to name him, from Orange County, runs a convention. That's his job, right? He owns a convention that's similar to CES. It has to do with digital advertising. And he met his wife. She was his cocktail waitress in Vegas.
Yeah.
Nice.
So it's these things do happen. Maybe they don't happen to people
not like me.
Yeah. But you got a number from a cocktail waitress in Vegas. That's what you're trying to tell the story?
Opposite. She got my number, and that's why.
Look at this guy. Can we fit his head in the frame?
Hey, are you coming back next weekend? Type thing. It's now I know why. It's all commissions.
Part of it is not most of it is maybe not all, but most.
Yeah. Back then you were handsome.
Back then, way back when.
Give yourself some credit.
Thanks.
Yeah,
I will.
But I think it's interesting. You were talking about how these cocktail waitresses, they've got the look, right? And then as they get as they get more experience in the game, they start running a business. right? They've got a client list, right? Like you said, they're making warm calls throughout the week. How was your trip? Oh my gosh, you're back. I want to hear more. Are you coming in Saturday night? Oh my gosh, I think I'll be there. Oh yeah, come in. I'll put you on the list. Boom, $2,000 bill.
Yep.
Right. And so those sales skills, at least from my vantage point, translate into so many different industries, whether it's like, all of a sudden they hit 30, right? And maybe they're pivoting to
something
real
else.
estate.
Yep. Or generally that's a move. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a move. And that's a good move, right? Because they still have those, they still have those good looks. They're still a people person, great at managing relationships. That's a natural segue. But all these other guys, like you were saying, like you've got a guy who starts out as a bartender, to use him as an example. And then he's like, well, teach me everything. It reminds me again from Coming to America, where he's like, well, I'm washing lettuce right now. Soon enough, I'm going to be on fries. You know what I mean? Then the grill. And that's when the big bucks start rolling in.
At McDowell's.
Yeah. But the truth is, right? Like in any business, when you are presented with someone with initiative, you move them through these ranks naturally. And to go back to what we were talking about earlier, this natural sort of tug of war between like, well, I want to keep this person here because they're accountable and they're responsible and they see the vision and they're delivering on the mission statement, but now they want to start their own thing. And so I'm always curious about the capital structure for like, raising capital to start this. You've got a guy who starts out bartending.
Right.
Maybe he's a bad example because his family's in the industry, but how do you put the chips on the table? You've got this guy who's worked for you, or gal who's worked for you for like 5, 6, 7, 8 years. And they're like, I want to do something, right? So it's like, to start a restaurant, to start a nightclub, it's not like all of a sudden you just transition from being in the front of house, right? And then you flip the switch and all of a sudden like, welcome to my club, right? There's so much more involved. And you talked about like letting key people in who've expressed interest in eventually, right, becoming a Mikey G. I want to be like you, right? Exposing them to some brutal realities, which is like managing a lease, HR, I don't know, P&L, right? You said that,
right? Yeah,
right. We're not as rich as you may think.
Working capital.
Yeah, right. Like, dude, like you got to make it work.
Yeah.
So talk me through that, like as somebody who has gone through the ranks, started out as a sailor, right? Now they're like, whatever, right? Now they're a general or master sergeant. I don't know what the ranks are, but when they're willing to say like, Mikey G, I'm ready to spread my wings. How do you approach that? And obviously they're going to come to you and like, you're a magnate. Will you finance it for me?
Right. Yeah. So I think at least in my experience, I think the evolution looks like this. In the particular case I mentioned already, that 3 of our previous nightclubs went to former employees.
Right.
Unusual situation there because in the case of 2 of them, it was a customer who had the dough, recognized the manager who was doing the work, and said, hey, why don't you do your own club and I'll finance it. And when that employee comes and says, oh, I got this guy that wants to back me.
Yeah.
Great. You can buy us out,
Yeah.
So in that case, that worked out in those 2 examples. Let's just say that employee didn't have that backer.
Yeah.
He had the skill set and the ability to do the job, but probably would have had some work to do to get the financing.
Yeah.
In the case of Frankie, his family was in the business. He had the ability. Actually, he's a very smart kid and was very good with his money, and saved his money, and was able to do a lot of it himself and with his family. So different example. The normal example that's going to happen, I think, is this: I'm ready to move on. I'm ready to open my own place.
Yeah.
And let's just say, I might give them. I will say, well, have you saved up some capital, or do you have an ability to get some money? But let's assume that that answer is yes. Okay, you can do the capital.
Yeah,
great. Let's talk about your plan. What are you going to do? Where are you going to do it? And what else you need beyond the capital? Most people don't realize the hardest thing is to get the lease. If you want a decent location, a landlord is not going to just give you a lease.
Right. Why is that?
Because they want it backed, you know, they want
security.
They want security. Yeah, they want security. So, you know, even if your grandmother left you a couple $100,000 because she passed away and you've got some money,
right.
You haven't shown the experience, you don't have anything to back the lease. So you kind of need somebody anyway. So we've been in a situation where somebody's gotten all the way to the finish line, but they can't guarantee the lease.
Right.
Or we've sold businesses where we've been all the way to the finish line and the landlord's like, well, why am I going to let you guys out when this guy's unproven? So we've got to make an arrangement to slowly get us off and the new person on, which we've been able to do and get creative.
What does a typical lease look like? Is this like a 3-year term, 5-year term?
Generally you want 20 years.
Wow.
So because here's why.
Is it the leasehold improvements?
You're doing big capital improvements, right? Or you know, so you're putting in millions of dollars, right? Well, you don't want that thing going away. So you want a 10 and 2 5s, right?
Yeah,
so you want 20 years, you want that thing locked up at 20 years. The other issue could be you're buying what they call key money. You're buying existing business.
Yeah.
So restaurants for sale, the owner wants $1 million, $500,000 to go away. You're going to get his liquor license. You're going to get his equipment. You're going to get his goodwill, his name, whatever.
So this is like Flux.
In the case of Flux, Flux had key money.
Right.
And then you had to deal with the landlord.
Yeah.
Right. So
is everything assignable? Like even the liquor license?
Yeah. You can transfer the liquor license.
Okay.
You can assign the liquor license.
What does that cost? I'm curious.
Right now, a liquor license in San Diego is $125,000 to buy. If you can get it.
Is that always financed?
No. Generally, you gotta cash. You can't finance those generally.
Wow.
Whoever's selling it.
What a great business.
Yeah,
what a great business if we could finance.
It's peer to peer. You can't buy a license. You can't broker them. You can't buy a license and then resell it. It has to go to so if you have a license,
if there's a transfer of ownership,
it has to go to a place and be used immediately.
So let me ask you this: like with cabs back in the day in New York or Boston,
you buy the medallion.
You buy the medallion. Yep. So for a business owner who's looking to sell his liquor license, is it always just a component of the sale?
Yeah. And there hasn't been a lot of appreciation on licenses. So licenses have been between 100 and 25 since I've been here.
Sounds like a great side.
Unlike a cabbie license that I know appreciated for a while and got up to $1 million. I have no idea what it's worth now with Uber.
I wonder why those can't be financed.
I mean,
as like a side bet.
There was the all-time financing program in San Diego that you don't know.
No, I don't know.
So there was a gal, her name was Gina. And she was financing liquor licenses.
Oh, okay. So I'm not. All right. So this is not like I discovered America.
No. This is the biggest. It's the biggest. What was the term?
Was this fraud? Did I read about this in the San Diego Business Journal or something?
It was the biggest. It wasn't a Ponzi scheme. It was the biggest scheme.
Yeah.
By a woman in U.S. history.
I did read this,
and that was what it was. It was about financing liquor licenses.
Yeah. So say what happened.
So what she was doing was. She owned a restaurant company.
Yes.
Yes. And she had 5 or 6 restaurants and going along, but her side business she was financing supposedly. Actually, it was a Ponzi scheme. Actually, now that I think about it.
Yeah.
Because actually, now that I think about it was a Ponzi scheme because she wasn't actually financing the licenses. Yeah. So what she would come to me or you and say, hey, I'm financing all these liquor licenses because you just. Yeah. Exactly what you just thought. Your preconceived notion that a business owner or a potential business owner would need to finance a license.
Right.
And so she would say, Billy, I got 100 people that need licenses. I got the buyer and the seller, and I'm financing the whole thing.
Right.
And it's backed by the license.
Right.
Right. So it would be like having real property.
That's your security.
So this thing is foolproof. They just don't have the money right now up front. Yeah. And you'd say, oh my God, this is genius. And so. That's what she was doing.
How stupid I am.
And she's in prison now.
Because she was living off the money. High on the hog.
High on the hog.
Oh, that's so great.
Yeah.
That's so great.
Yeah.
400 million.
That's it. Only $500 million.
Well, she got stopped. I mean, she was on a roll. She was on a roll. Yeah.
And I wonder why she got stopped. It must have been.
It didn't add up. So I sat through the pitch.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I sat through the pitch. An investor friend of mine asked me to sit through the pitch because I knew about licenses. I'm honestly surprised it lasted as long as it did. The math didn't make sense. 400 million, if that's the number.
Yeah.
There just isn't even that many license transactions in She'd have to have, when she had given me the numbers, I thought to myself, she would have to be financing every single liquor license in the state of California.
Hundreds.
Yeah, and
Thousands,
it just didn't make any sense to me because
Yeah.
if you're about to embark on, the first thing you do is get the liquor license. And so generally when you're broke is when you're trying to pay the painter, the last guy in. The liquor license is like the first thing in.
Were her restaurants failing, and then she was using that money to like keep these restaurants alive?
According to the stories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. I mean, there's so many Ponzi schemes out there. I was last week, I was talking to this guy that I want to link you up with, Jeff Fenster, who founded the company Everbowl.
Everbowl, yeah.
Great dude, really oddly smart. And it's so funny how you make these decisions in life and then you end up in these spots. This is a guy kid from San Diego, grew up just like I did, went to law school, passed the bar, didn't want to be a lawyer, wanted to be a sports agent, didn't want to be a sports agent, navigated his way and then eventually opened up this company Everbowl, which has exploded.
Yeah.
Right. He has 100 locations, 300 more that he's already sold the rights to. This is like a guy that needs to know Maikichi, right? That needs to understand how to manage a brand, how to scale a brand.
Sounds like I need to know him.
Yeah. Well, what I mean is like, this is a young man.
Yeah.
That,
I love his product, by the way.
Yeah, dude. I mean, it's a great product. I'd been eating at his stores before I knew who he was, but we were just talking about, specifically about how he's found a lot of success and how I'm curious how often he gets pitch decks put in front of him, potential investments.
Right.
And, because once you come into some money, you start getting these pitches, right? People like understand that you're, in Yiddish we would say like a macher, but like a mogul, right?
Yeah.
Like they're like, well, I've got a couple years ago, Dean and I were looking at a pitch deck from a guy who owned a couple hundred Little Caesars. I don't know if you remember that. Little Caesars Pizza.
Yeah.
And it's like, dude, what do I know about Little Caesars Pizza? It's like, and it was, the guy was just looking for debt. It wasn't an equity component.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, if I give you $100,000, $200,000, where's that money go? Right? It's just debt.
Yeah.
So this, it's going back to this lady, Gina. We'll put some rouge on your cheeks. You know what I mean? But she's running this Ponzi scheme, right? I thought I had discovered America talking about like financing liquor licenses, but yeah, going back to the original question, which was like, they're coming at you, they're leaving one of your venues. How do they get this money? And you were talking about, well, the most difficult part is securing the lease.
Yeah, because you can get the cash, and then I'll give you so I don't have that many. We have a decent number of people who have left, probably a high number for our industry and our business, but I actually see it more on the consulting side. So we run a consulting business. And
is that RMD?
RMD does, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
So it's another aspect of our business.
I just bought $1,000 gift card.
Yeah, that was great.
From RMD.
I love that.
Sorry if I like ruined your sales contest.
No.
I thought that was hilarious.
So I get a lot of calls, and what'll happen is somebody will be in the process of trying to do a transaction, and it will go like this. And this happens a lot. Seller and buyer. I'm referring to the buyer as the guy calling me. The seller and the buyer get together. Maybe there's a broker, maybe there isn't. They agree on a purchase price.
Yeah.
And it isn't until the landlord gets involved and starts asking the real questions. Where's the money?
Right.
What's the plan?
Yeah.
Where the landlord will start to put up these barriers that makes them call me.
Got it.
And then they'll call me and they'll say, I need a business plan.
Yeah.
Generally that's the call I get.
Right.
And I say, what do you need a business plan for?
And these landlords.
This is a buyer calling me.
Yeah.
Oh, I found this bar for sale. I want to buy it.
Yeah.
But I need a business plan. The landlord wants a business plan. And so I say, okay,
I'll make one for you.
Yeah.
For
look,
10 grand.
For me, yes, that would be an easy 10 grand. You're right. 99% of the time,
yeah,
I'm like, knucklehead, what are you doing? So I'll say, okay, well, just articulate what is the plan?
Yeah.
And they don't have one. They're going to figure it out.
What the plan is to just open
The plan
it
is
and
to
expect
buy it,
customers to come in.
and the plan is to buy it, and they've been to a lot of restaurants, so how hard could it be? So I say, okay, well, just tell me, like, in your own words, what are you going to do? Why do you want this?
Yeah.
And I would say most of those calls end with, me saying, look, dude, why don't you pass on this location,
Right.
get your plan together, and then go find a location that makes sense for your plan, which you don't have right now. So that's generally, I'm just not in the business of collecting 10 grand for nothing. We do very limited consulting, and I only do it when we feel like we can actually add value and when there's going to be some success. This is not a big part of what we do. It's not fun.
Okay. But on the RMD side, right, you're selective about who you do business with.
Correct.
And it reminds me of trying to buy a Rolex or like trying to buy a Ferrari, where it's like, well, do you currently own a Rolex?
Yep.
Right?
Exactly.
Oh, which one do you want to buy now?
Yep.
Or have you owned a Ferrari before? Okay, good. We've got you in line for this model.
You're going to start down here and you're going to work your way up.
Absolutely. Because we were at Huntress Steakhouse, I don't know, a few days ago. Saturday night?
2 days ago? Yeah. Saturday.
Yeah, Saturday. 3 days. Okay. And I'm looking out the window, and there's a hotel, kitty corner.
Pendry.
Was it Pendry? Was that the one where you met with the guy who...
Of Altitude, Marriott, right?
Oh, Altitude, Marriott.
Was this the one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is like a guy who owns a bunch of hotels.
Yeah.
Billionaire.
I don't know if he's a billionaire, but he owns a bunch of hotels. And very, very good. Thompson Hotel Group, excellent company. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. And then he comes to you and he goes, I want you to manage this project.
Yep.
And that's Altitude.
Yeah. The redevelopment of their prized possession, which I think is one of the best rooftops in San Diego.
Yeah. I've been there. That's awesome.
Yeah. Redevelop the process of,
Yeah.
So, hey, we need to do a remodel. We need to do a refresh and a reboot. Come help us figure out what to do. You're in the market. We want a local. We want someone with some expertise. And so we've been working with them for a couple months now.
So just so I can understand, like, because there's two sides to the business, right? There's one side where we open and operate these restaurants, bars, nightclubs.
Yeah.
Right. And then there's this, how old is RMD?
18 years.
Oh, okay. So this is, you've been doing this a while.
Long time. Yeah.
Okay. At your stage, we would say advanced stage in life. At your advanced age, what's more interesting to you?
I think,
are the nightclubs still like, am I going to find you there Saturday night? I might know the answer to this. But.
I think that what's interesting is developing new people and developing new products. That's what's interesting. The reason we do the consulting, yeah, sure, we make a buck. The reality is it feeds the need to do new and cool stuff that we can't how many places can we open of our own? So it gives us an opportunity to work in new spaces and develop new spaces and develop new teams without having to do it ourselves. So, it's like a chef who needs to change the menu all the time, right? Even though everybody in the neighborhood's like, don't change it, we love it.
Yeah.
Well, the chef's just not going to be inspired anymore cooking the same old thing over and over again. So he's going to have to either keep opening restaurants or keep changing the menu.
Yeah.
So for us, consulting sort of feeds that, not only for myself, but the rest of the team, which is a big one.
It scratches that itch.
It does. It scratches the itch,
Yeah. And so I guess what I'm interested in understanding is you've operated restaurants, nightclubs, bars. You're now consulting. I mean, you probably have been, but consulting with hotels. Is it just in Southern California?
No. We've done as far as, New York, upstate New York. So we'll go anywhere.
Yeah.
If it's the right project. A lot of it happens to be in Southern California, but not all of it.
Okay. So I guess the question for me comes back to, as a patron of some of the restaurants that you own, you eat at it and you go, why is this not in Miami? Why is this not in New York City? Let's take Lumi or Huntress, for example. Like, these are brilliant concepts, but sometimes when you're operating a business, you don't realize that this is a brand that could easily scale.
Right.
And I think there was a funny movie that came out probably 10, 15 years ago that had, or that was about the McDonald brothers. And I forget who was it. Who was the Dean? Who played Ray Kroc?
That was great movie.
Great movie, right?
Yeah, great movie.
Yeah. What was the guy's name? Was it Batman? The guy who played
Michael Keaton.
Michael Keaton. Bingo. Yeah.
What was the movie called?
Uncle Lev.
The founder.
The founder.
founder.
There you go.
Oh,
He was selling ice cream
spoke.
machines, blenders,
Right.
basically.
Yeah. And
One of the greatest movies about business.
Right. Yeah. Highly suggest that movie to all those up and coming business owners out there. But I don't think the McDonald brothers obviously realized the type of success they were sitting on.
Right.
And so again, right, going back to this Huntress Loomy concept, Johnny Wahoo's another great example, Flux, Ciro's. You have these concepts, and my business coach, for example, would say, like, you are involved in the business every day. You're working in the business, right? And so the key is, how do you get yourself out of the business to work on the business?
Right.
And, like, my business coach, for example, would always suggest, like, okay, well, a few times a year, you got to take these key people, go to Palm Springs, go to LA, go to Scottsdale, something like that. Do a retreat where you actually plan for the upcoming year.
That's right.
Not budgetary planning. This is strategic planning, right? You're involved in the day-to-day management. It sounds like if people can call you and say, like, hey, I'm trying to open up this restaurant, but the landlord says, like, I need a business plan, help me. How do you this is a time management question, right? Which is, how do you spend enough time nurturing all these businesses to remove yourself from the day-to-day management to think big picture?
Yeah. So, well, it's having good people. So that's taken time. I would say, if you asked me 10 years ago, I was working in the business 24/7, not doing anything else, not thinking about working on the business. And then fast forward to now, significantly less, working more on the business and working less in the business. Still majorly involved.
Yeah.
I've found a way to stay very connected to exactly what's going on. I mean, if a bartender got drunk last night and got sent home, I would know about it.
Yeah.
But 10 years ago, I'd be dealing with it.
Yeah.
Today, I just know about it.
Right.
I'm not so removed. I don't even know about such a small detail. But I'm not having to deal with it because I've got great people that can deal with it. My partners and I have set up a structure, an infrastructure that's taken a long time to build, a lot of good people in place, so that we can now scale the business.
Yeah.
To go back to your other question, which was a good one. So when we started out, we were so involved in the business. By the way, I call it the stinky room. You're in the stinky room, you don't realize it smells stinky, and then somebody walks in and they're like, man, it smells stinky in here. You're like, really? Yeah. And you've got to walk outside to walk back in.
Right.
We train managers, sound and lighting, walk into a restaurant. I'm like, do you realize the lighting is off?
Right.
They don't see it. I always encourage them to walk outside,
right,
stand outside on the sidewalk for a minute, walk back in, and you'll see the lighting and you'll hear the music. So I appreciate the concept. So if you go back 10 years ago, we were so in the business that we were very opportunistic, meaning somebody would call a landlord and say, hey, I've got this great space. You guys should take it over. You're great operators. And we'd go over there and we'd say, oh man, we could build this concept in here.
Yeah.
And we would do it based on the opportunity. So it wasn't like, oh, we always wanted to do a Flux. We just saw the building, saw the space, and thought what would fit in there.
It's funny because it's so off the beaten path.
It is, right? But we saw that space and we thought about it, and
it's wild.
There was a whole exercise we went through to come up with what we did there. But the point being, and then we realized, then we were opening small things and big things. So the first realization we came to was, okay, to open a $7 million revenue generating $7 million business is the exact same effort as it is to open a $1 million revenue generating business. Right. So your guy you were talking about at Everbowl, different now. He's at 100. He's got a whole different thing. But I'm sure when he, was opening 2 and 3 Everbowls, he could have opened a $500,000 revenue generating store or a $1.5 million revenue generating store, and it'd be the same effort. So we realized we're not going to do anything that's going to do anything less than 7 million. How we came up with that number, I don't remember, but that was sort of like, why bother with $1 million?
Yeah.
Let's do 7.
Lucky number 7.
Lucky number 7. That was it. Yeah. So then we started to realize, okay, we've got to stop doing things that are not scalable because there's no exit in a hodgepodge of concepts and brands.
Right.
So so when we created Huntress and Lumi, the intent was that we would never create anything else again other than Huntress, Lumi, and Rustic Root.
Yeah.
Johnny Wahoo was an afterthought. So we said, you know what, we'll just continue to build these brands.
Right.
We'll work on our consulting business. That'll feed our desire to create new things.
Right.
And then, the question is, why is there not another Huntress and Lumi? COVID. I mean, we opened in the middle of COVID. That was literally those businesses. We got our building permit.
Dark days for restaurants.
And in the middle of COVID, we opened in the middle of COVID, we closed, we opened, we closed, the whole thing.
Yeah.
So we're sort of still like bailing out of that whole COVID thing.
Right.
We were very close on another Lumi location that just fell apart.
Where was that? Didn't
work out. It was in between here and LA and Long Beach-ish.
Okay.
So that is our intent. Our intent is to continue to do Huntress Lumi. We're doing our second Rustic Root, which will be in Solana Beach.
Yeah,
which we're pretty excited about.
That's awesome.
We had another location for Rustic Root closer to Little Italy that fell apart. So, we look at 50 deals to do one.